Welcome back to Building CareCo. You might notice today our CTO looks different. Huge mazel tov and congratulations to our CTO, Shlomo Mrazov, had a baby girl last night. And today we are honored and excited to have a very special guest on the podcast. Esriel Rappoport is a partner of mine going back to Previva Health Group, is actually the original owner of Previva Health Group. And that's a whole podcast on for itself. But has come along the journey into CareCo. CareCo was really built on the culmination of a lot of experiences through Previva that we really both went through. And so it's really a natural synergy. And Esriel is in a capacity of advisor and just business strategy. So really excited to have you in person here, and this should be
Thank
fun.
you. Yeah.
Thanks.
Looking forward.
So, as you know, we always sit over a bottle of wine, and Esriel has brought us something special. This is a proprietary blend. This is the Malion Reserve 14 with some beautiful artwork. Do you remember the artist's name?
I think Shemi, maybe?
Sounds about right. I see something with a C as his first name and Shemi as the last name.
Yeah.
So this is a company that you have, right? Called Malion
Holdings. Yeah.
Malion Holdings. And one of the things that you guys do for fun is make yourselves wine, which is a rich people flex. So this is a blend. It's a cap. It's a bunch of other stuff. Fun fact for the second and third iteration of this bottle, I actually got to design the label. Had a lot of fun with that. So this is a great bottle.
That's true.
And we will open it and where was it made?
Not the second and third, the third and fourth, but yeah.
Third and fourth?
Yeah.
This is the second?
This is the first, but
okay.
there's one after that still. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where was this made?
This is a California in Napa Valley.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
The other ones were French, though, right?
That's right.
Remember those? We had to write what it pairs with. It paired with duck. That was right when ChatGPT was coming out. Like literally, this was like months into like.
That was the first bottle that you did?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And I remember running using it to create the description for the wine and what it blends with. I basically just like copied all the info about the wine from the website and just threw it in and said like, give this to me in a format for a wine label. Like, it's more concise. And that was like one of those magical things back then. That was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And, we've come such a long way since then. I mean, that's just
It actually
obvious.
Feels like really long ago. Like now
Yeah.
I'm trying to think when that was, and I have like no recollection.
Yeah.
The world has moved.
Yeah. Some of it's selling, but
Smells all right.
it looks great. Got to get one of those, the iron tongs that they use in the restaurants for like the $150 bottles, and they melt the whole thing off, and then they.
Yeah, I was invited to one of those lately. I was staying in a hotel in Florida, and I just wanted to go upstairs to the room, and they're like, no, come inside. We're doing I don't know what they call it. There's some sort of a medieval name for it.
Really?
Like
Wine decapitation? Something like that?
Don't remember the name exactly, but yeah, it's like a whole ceremony, and they were doing it with like a really expensive bottle. I mean, not that I could have tried it, but
yeah. And they put like a little lip in.
And I decided to go to sleep instead.
And that's an old person flex. No, that's another rich person flex. Chaim, cheers.
Chaim.
Thanks for coming out. This is going to be fun. And once again, congratulations to Shlomi. That's wonderful.
It is.
It really is wonderful.
But it's still going to open up. It's 11 years old. So.
Wow. Okay, so Esriel, we have so much to talk about. We don't have to get if anyone wants the whole story on like the origin story of Previva and CareCo, they can go buy the AMI from
ChatGPT
or just ChatGPT, ask about us. There was a good article back in the AMI magazine, which is a pretty popular magazine in the Orthodox Jewish community, that covered my whole story, and then actually the next week or a couple weeks later your story. So we'll save that for then. Let's dig right in. You have kept your eyes and ears and interest really at the forefront of generative AI. As an advisory role, you've pushed me on a bunch of different levels throughout the kind of conceptions around CareCo and then rolling out CareCo and along the way. Let's dig right into something really interesting that I saw this week. Klarna is a company that does customer service. Is it?
No, they
What do they do?
It's a pay. It's like a firm. It's like a
Consulting firm?
no.
Technology?
It's a yeah. It
Oh, they
splits your
split up your
payments.
payments? Oh, okay, it's like a pay later kind of
One
thing.
of the
Okay, split up the payments.
one of the companies that has been destroying America for us. You know.
Yes, which
But
you have a
it's
lot to
like
speak
it's
on.
buy now, pay later. Yeah.
Buy now, pay later, right? Which now you even get like at the gas station. I feel like you get gas
Yeah.
and they're like, would you like to pay for this tank now? Or would you like to
Yeah,
pay
I was
later?
just actually like listening to a little clip about like some young people talking about Klarna, and one of them was saying like, I just bought something for $80 and I split it into 4 payments, and I'm like,
Why?
if I cannot afford an $80 purchase, maybe I shouldn't be buying it. Like,
So I actually want to double click on this because I know you have some strong views. You grew up in Switzerland, and it's a very, very different culture when it comes to spending. I remember you telling me about how, when the difference between a person in Switzerland driving a Porsche and the person in America driving a Porsche, what are those differences, and how's that like culturally very, very different?
I mean, in every way, honestly. I remember in one of my earlier jobs in life, I was working in a place and there were all these young sales guys, and they were driving like these souped up BMWs and Mercedes and some even Bentley. And I knew how much they were actually earning. And
This is here in America.
yeah. And, there's this culture in America that people don't even look at the price of anything. They just look at how much is my monthly payment going to be. And culturally, that created so many problems. I mean, the amount of credit card debt, the amount of savings per household. I mean, so in Switzerland, basically, what you see is what you get. Not even what you see, because most people live below their means. But if you see a $300,000 car driving in Switzerland, that means that the person had the cash to buy it for $300,000. Whether they did at least to have some sort of a company write-off, perhaps. But pretty much, if you only buy things once you can afford them, and it's a much healthier approach to life. Honestly, it's a
Now, as a country, and we obviously have had a huge problem with spending historically in this country. It came to a head with the creation of Doge and the work that Elon and the folks over there are doing. Do you think that that's connected to a general national culture around this, or does the Switzerland government suffer from like the same typical, or is it just a government thing to just like overspend because there's no real consequences?
Well, first of all, I mean, I just threw America under the bus for a second, and I do
In that
want to
regard.
say, yeah, there's a lot of good that comes along with it also. I think there's like this culture of like can do, like even the idea that a 20-year-old kid says, I can buy a Lamborghini, like it just creates a very different mind space, and I think it opens up people's, a lot of great entrepreneurial things come out of that.
Yeah, no question about it. I had one of those experiences when I bought my first house.
Mm-hmm.
That makes it sound like I have many houses. When I bought my house, it was like a total mind shift for me, where I was like, oh my gosh, I could own real estate. Like, that's crazy. And then, did end up buying some more stuff. And that was definitely a shift where like you go from, so yeah, there's a mortgage, but it definitely was a huge mind shift.
You asked about Doge. I mean, there's definitely, the government in America definitely works a little bit in the same way as people in America think. And it creates a lot of problems, There's one of the big ones, for example, is that there's $30 billion that was spent on building out broadband internet so that everybody would have access to the internet. In reality, it didn't result in anything. And when people in the government were approached about it, they were like, come on, 30 billion, that's a rounding error.
Right.
Like on a $7 trillion budget, what's 30 billion? And it's like an attitude, like everything is a rounding error.
Yeah.
And it creates for a lot of waste. But, I don't think people know this, but the idea of Doge is not a new concept. Actually, the original one was right after World War
Truman,
II.
right?
Yeah. And right after World War II, they basically had to examine all the spend that was going on during the war, and they found so much waste, and they saved $15 billion over the next 7 years.
Then.
Yes, which amounts to about $250 billion
Wow.
just by reducing government waste.
Wow.
And then Clinton had a similar. It's interesting. I was always a big fan of what Clinton did because he actually balanced the budget for a while. We had a budget surplus then. So,
it's interesting. We had at this point about 2 weeks ago, I had Mina Seshimani was the Dr. Mina Seshimani is the former director of Medicare. She was the director of Medicare as of about a couple weeks ago. She just left, and we got her exit interview on the Healthcare Trailblazers podcast, and she was talking about kind of the differences between waste, fraud, and abuse. And it's funny because until she really talked about it, even though you hear that term, I thought it was just a term. I didn't think it actually was a legal difference. But there's a very, very significant difference to those three things. But I kind of feel like it actually works as a chain, where when there's a lot of waste and waste goes on unchecked, that's what leads to abuse, and that's what leads to eventually to straight up fraud. I think that since this didn't happen since Clinton, I mean, there's probably much longer between Truman and Clinton than Clinton and Trump, right?
Interesting.
So maybe my theory doesn't stand. I don't know.
No, it is a little bit longer, but it's not much longer.
Yeah. Because in this case, you're seeing a lot of waste, but there's definitely a lot of abuse and fraud. I mean, a lot of the news that's coming out between USAID and the different things that were being spent on that were just anybody with sense would be like, but exactly like you said, because there's this mindset.
But you're getting the highlight reel. I mean,
for sure.
We have to be a little careful. Not all of these things are. I think it's indicative of what's going on, but
but a line item is a line item. Like if it says on a sheet, we spent X amount of billions or millions of dollars on something, maybe it's out of context, but that's still a fact. I mean, it's not.
But, imagine you find yourself in something that you consider to be vital for the country and for the future of the country. And then maybe it doesn't age well. And the next administration has a look at it and is like, how did anybody ever think? Look in the age of AI, we get to see a lot of that. Some things just don't age well, and maybe they were done with the right intentions, and they really, USAID was a good organization. It was formed by Kennedy, and it had a very specific purpose. It morphed into something else, which speaks to what you were saying. A lot of times things just start off as waste, and then
it makes sense to me logically. Once waste goes unchecked for long enough, it starts becoming abuse, and then once abuse starts going unchecked for long enough, starts becoming fraud. You're like, hey, basic, running a company 101 where they talk about fraud, and there's like three things that have to be in place. Someone has to have the justification to commit fraud or steal. It's like justification, the ability, and like a third thing. And it's like these things make sense when something just goes unchecked for long enough. That's just what happens. But to your point, I had a conversation with the late Paul Mango, rest in peace, a friend of mine who passed away recently. He ran the Operation Warp Speed under the Trump administration to actually create the vaccine. And I remember him talking to me about how they had $100 million budget for essentially marketing to create vaccine
awareness,
not awareness, even more like to convince people that it's safe. What's the word for it? Whatever. And I remember thinking, this is the perfect thing where, depending on where you sit on the political spectrum, can look completely opposite. Where if it comes down to one thing. If you think that the vaccine is a good thing, then it's like, of course, it's a marketing budget. They spent I don't know how many billions of dollars to create the vaccine, because the Trump administration created 6 or 7 vaccines at the same time, and one was going to be the winner. So a lot of that money was going to go to waste. It's like, we put all this money into this product. It's a marketing budget. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, that's not a waste. I mean,
But my point is, if you think that the vaccine is bad, then that looks like, oh my gosh, they're trying to brainwash people into taking the vaccine. You can literally see the same thing and see two polar opposite ideas.
So I think it's important to not fall into the trap of being like polarized by what we hear. Sometimes the administration seems to be the polar opposite of you, and sometimes everything is in line with your thinking. I think any intelligent person has to have the ability to like rise above it and try to examine things for what they are. In the beginning of COVID, so I volunteer for an ambulance, and I remember very clearly that all the way in the beginning already, there were people that they just said, "Oh, this is all a government farce, and we don't need to wear masks." And I was literally taking these people to the hospital, and they were dying, and there was no cure, and there was no knowledge associated with it. And I believe that a lot of those people did not have to die. Back then, like, how do you know better? How do you know better? Now, even if you're vindicated, a year later, and you say, "You see, I was right," you weren't right at the time. At that time, so when the government does things like this, for example, vaccines, I believe that they were done for the right reasons. As a matter of fact, I'm probably one of the first Americans to have gotten vaccinated, and I felt that it was a really important thing at the time. Now, did I potentially hurt my health long term? It's possible, but I don't regret it. Yeah. I think I did the best thing I could do with the information that I had available to myself.
Yeah. So speaking of moving fast with information you have at the time, I'm going to swing this all the way back to Klarna. So Klarna is a company that is a buy now, pay later company, and they made some big headlines a couple months ago. And I remember you specifically picking up the phone and calling me pretty excited about this, where they said that they had laid off some obscene amount, maybe 70% or 50% of their workforce and completely replaced it with AI. And they made a ton of headlines and a ton of news cycles about the AI replacing humans and look what they're able to do. And also like, wow, look at this amazing company. They're so future focused. They move so quickly. And this week they completely turned course. They came out with a headline that said, it was their CEO, I believe, and he said, "I just had an epiphany. The human touch," or something along these lines, "the human touch is going to be the most valuable thing in a world of AI. Klarna," and he said, "I know you might make fun of us for coming up, for being late on this, but we've actually decided to completely reverse course. We're now going to make Klarna the best company, the company that makes speaking to a human the best possible experience." And I'll get into my opinion on this, but first of all, what are your thoughts on kind of where that, as watching the market and seeing this and seeing them at the beginning, and what's your take on that seeming reversal of course?
So I can't speak to the specific situation. I did not see him saying that they reversed course on anything, so I'm going to go with.
I'll say the exact tweet. 1 second. "We just had an epiphany. In a world of AI, nothing will be as valuable as humans!" Okay, you can laugh at us for realizing it so late, but we are going to kick off work to allow Klarna to become the best at offering a human to speak to. 3 exclamation marks. So excited about this. More to come. Another exclamation mark.
Mm-hmm. So, again, I don't know. It's very possible, but he's not saying that we're reversing course. It's almost like we have an epiphany that the human is a really valuable piece. Now, I have a few different opinions on this matter. I think long-term, AI will be able to replace the human, specifically in the capacity of customer service, and I think it could potentially even do a better job than a human. It's very interesting because Grok 3 came out this week, and in the demo, when the official demo of Grok 3, which was Elon Musk and a couple of his engineers, and they were showing off a specific prompt, the query for deep reasoning, and they put in the prompt 3 times, and they said that because of the way a reasoning model works, they may not all come up with the same exact results, and the code may not work. So we're going to just run this 3 times, and and it's going to keep getting better. But a lot of the people mistake this idea. When you're in a mission critical environment, imagine you're on the phone with customer service, and then just something really stupid comes out. The customer service agent, the AI agent, just got triggered wrong and went down a rabbit hole. And you're like, what? And I don't think that humans have that tolerance as of right now. I don't think that when a person knows that if they think that they're talking to a human, and the computer just like goes a little haywire on them, I think it does a lot of damage. They lose trust in the company. So long term, I do still believe that AI is very powerful when it comes to that. But I'm a big believer that humans are going to matter way more in a world of AI. Not so much as customer service agents, but as reality. I think people will be craving real humans, and maybe the fallibility of humans, maybe just the imperfectness. That a little overweight, a little lisp.
Dad bod vibes.
Yeah. I mean,
isn't that the current reality with art? I mean, art went from a human-only ability to a machine ability. Machines can create sculptures and can create things at scale, and yet people pay so much more for human art and human created things. Yeah. So now you're kind of getting into like an underlying psychology. Why do you think that is?
That you're going deep right now. I mean, I think we're just hardwired to have a connection to other human beings, and I think there's all these possibilities out there today in genetic engineering, and you can get that perfect nose and that perfect face and the perfect voice. And imagine we would just be an army of robots walking around, and everybody would look according to that perfect image of what we consider to be a human. The world would become so imperfect. And I don't have a direct answer to the question, but I can tell you that as of right now, I think people just don't know anymore what's real and what's fake. And I think it's a very disconcerting feeling for a human being to have that feeling. You're watching a video on YouTube. You don't know if it's a completely auto-generated video. Someone sent me today something that was generated with the Google. I think it's called VO2. So it's from Google. It's a deep video. I can create similar to the one from ChatGPT. I don't remember the name of that one, but Sora. But
those are all crap.
That video that it generated was so good. Yeah, it blew my mind.
You tried it today?
No, I'm saying she sent you a video. She sent me a link from YouTube of a generated video, and it was actually an advertisement for Porsche. You guys should check it out. Yeah. And he writes, it's so funny. He writes to the guy that generated it. He writes underneath the video and the title thing that Porsche, if you have a problem with this, just let me know and I will take it down. But it's a really, really good ad, and it looks like it cost millions of dollars to produce, and it was generated.
Wow.
And
it's crazy. I literally tried with I think the foremost AI video generation company. I'm trying to remember what it's called, but I did some research on like what's the best, because Sora is not good. I was trying to generate some stuff just a couple weeks ago, and it was like just not working. Like I paid for it and everything, it was just like not working. But
that will change.
It for sure will change. For sure, no question about it. I think there's something. You and I had a bit of an argument about this week, and I think it does come back to it. So I'm gonna double click on this.
You want to use Klarna to say that I'm wrong?
No. It's not. It's we'll bring it back to Klarna, but more conceptually, just zooming out for a second, and the idea about humans craving something that's human, and my question was why, and I think that. What is that you see a pretty common pattern in the fact that part of being human is the imperfection, like you said. Part of being human is the struggle. Part of the enjoyment is the struggle. You don't have an up without a down. That concept of we only appreciate perfection when you know what imperfection looks like. We only appreciate strength when you know weakness. We only appreciate money when we actually work for it. We only appreciate relationships when we work for it. I think it all belongs to the same underlying concept that part of the human experience, part of being human is imperfection. And because of that, when you are trying to build a relationship, it is very difficult to build a relationship with something that you don't feel like you can relate with, because that thing is a machine and that thing is perfect at all times.
Just wait until AI will learn how to mimic imperfection, but
it will. But you still know that it's a machine.
Yeah,
you can have a machine build a sculpture with a dent in it.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying even in human interaction. So I mean, I think you're going with this approach that you're knowingly speaking to an AI agent, and I think that frustrates people more. But just think of the flip side of it. Let's say you're calling an airline and you want to speak and you want to change your ticket, and that person just doesn't get it, and they're like, "Can I speak to your supervisor?" And you're just like, you're trying to navigate. I mean, I've had many experiences like that, and they're super frustrating. And in many ways, in situations like that, I would like a system to be better, And I wouldn't mind if you trick me with an AI that actually knows how to understand me and solve my problems, understand my inflections and
remember the history of all your problems.
Yeah. So, look, I'm well aware that this is not going to be a black and white transition. This is going to be a lot of give and take. There's always going to be the companies or people that are going to go all in, and then maybe like Klarna, they're going to have to back off a little bit. And then there's going to be people that are going to take the wait and see approach and almost not go down that route at all. And then there's going to be companies like CareCo that are really going to use both elements and try to enhance the human.
Yeah.
A lot of the world is really going to move towards enhancing humans, at least for the foreseeable future. I mean, you have Neuralink and other companies like that, which, right now we're looking at it mostly from a medical perspective, helping people to regain cognitive and other abilities. But long term, that's going to be creating superhumans.
Yeah. So my take on Klarna is I'm reading into a very specific piece of what he said in his tweet. The exact words that he used were, "We're going to kick off work to allow Klarna to become the best at offering a human to speak to." To become the best at offering a human to speak to. What does that mean? A human is a human. Yeah. If I offer a human and you offer a human, what could possibly be the difference? And my take, Klarna came around to CareCo. That's my take. Klarna went all the way and went down a rabbit hole trying to just replace humans with AI, and they realized that that's the wrong place for AI. Mm-hmm. AI cannot replace humans, but AI can enhance the ability for people to help their customers, and in our case, to help patients in a way that is 1,000x their ability to do it on their own. And if you find that beautiful, deeply integrated workflow tool that maybe they're building at Klarna, we know we're building at CareCo, that is the magic combination. And that is how you create the ability to have the best possible experience of speaking to a human. Because I want to speak to a human, but I want that human to have the power of AI. I want that human to remember everything about me, to know everything that's relevant to this conversation, to help me immediately, to, not have any lag in actually executing the tasks that they said they would do on my behalf, to have perfect communication. That's what I want, but I also want a human. And I think they came around to CareCo. That's my take.
Yeah. I think you can make a very strong argument that that's what's going on, but I don't know that that's the final frontier.
Right.
I think that there is more to come.
Yeah.
We are, again, human fallibility is both beautiful and frustrating.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting, when Elon Musk speaks about the humanoid robots, for example, he says, the way he pitches them, so to speak, is like, let them do the stuff that nobody wants to do.
Right.
Let them do the work that no human wants to do. And you know what? If someone is calling customer service and I have to research through 7 pages of history, I don't think humans are that interested in that element. So,
right.
Having, or in the case of CareCo, having previous conversations summarized and other medical data come up for them, it enhances and people feel seen.
Yeah.
If I remember what I spoke to you about last month or the month before, you just feel seen.
Yeah. So let's shift gears a little bit. Interesting story that popped up this week. Bill Ackman went after UnitedHealthcare. Bill Ackman, for those that are living under a rock, is he goes by the pronouns activist investor. I think is his self description.
Did you also hear what else he did this week?
What else did he do this week?
He said he's becoming a Berkshire Hathaway.
Yeah, I did see that. I didn't understand it fully, nor did I care to.
So he's planning on taking control of a corporation called the Howard Hughes Corporation.
Howard Hughes, famous film guy.
Howard Hughes, famous aviation guy.
Aviation film director, right? Turned film director, failed film director. Depressed guy sat in his
recluse.
Yep.
But anyway, mainly to take over that shell company, so to speak, even though it's an operating company, but it's not an exciting company, and sort of use it as a launching pad to become, to generate great other companies, or to invest in other companies out of that company. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, go back to what you were saying. Yeah.
So he's
become very outspoken.
He's become very outspoken. He for years he's been an activist investor, which means that he basically created a hedge fund. He'd go into companies, he'd buy them up, and then he'd tell them what to do based on kind of moral principle things that he had, and that's taken him in different directions over the years. After October 7th, he became very outspoken, against anti-Semitism. He went after, literally toppled. I mean, almost single-handedly was responsible for the extreme degradation in public view of Ivy League schools like Harvard and Yale and Penn State and schools that have had tremendous issues with anti-Semitism, not just from their student, but also faculty since October 7th. And he was extremely outspoken, really interesting individual. So he's not someone you really want on your back. Let's put it that way. Like if you're a company, he's not a guy. He's got a huge, X following. He's got a big following on X, and in general, he's a powerful guy.
You got to be careful when you say things like an X following means people that are no longer following him.
Yeah. Followers on X would be,
or as literally everybody says, X, formerly known as Twitter.
FKR. Yeah, exactly. So this week I saw him repost a video from a woman named Dr. Potter. And she is a surgeon, and she was mid-operating on a patient, and she got a call from a UnitedHealthcare rep, United Health Group, I think, rep, and pulled her out of the operating room. She descrubbed, went in, got on the call, and basically started harassing her about the patient. I don't recall the details, basically saying that the patient was not
eligible for an overnight stay.
Right. And she was absolutely, flabbergasted, and made a short video saying, like, I don't even know what to do here. She was just aghast. Posted the video, went semi-viral. Bill got a hold of it. He put out a post about it. Then he got contacted by attorneys working for United Health Group, and it was a firm that he said he respected greatly, and they said that he was wrong, meaning they said that she was wrong in her facts. And so he took down the video with time to investigate. He spent a couple days, I think 2 days or something like that, investigating, spoke to her at length, asked United Health Group's lawyers for their facts, and he came to the determination that in fact she was correct, and United Health Group and these lawyers were being malicious and just using scare tactics and not being and so he basically returned to X, and that's also a huge mistake. If Bill Ackman's going after your company, here's a free piece of advice here. If Bill Ackman's going after your company and you did a thing wrong, contact him and figure out how to apologize. Don't threaten him because he's going to find out what the real facts are, and he's going to come back with a vengeance, double the
totally abusing the X platform by writing this endless 10-page letter.
Just a Megillah of a post. But anyway, so he came back the next day and just it was
not the next day.
It was it was a couple days later, and just wrote a 17,000 page X post going through all the facts. You have kind of a unique lens into this, because you've been part of a volunteer paramedic group called Hatzalah, very famous in the Orthodox Jewish community. My father-in-law is a colleague of yours over there. And so I'm sure you've had to deal an unfortunate amount with people and insurances. This has been an obvious conversation in this country that has really boiled up to a point with the completely horrific and cold-blooded murder of Brian Thompson, the CEO of UnitedHealth Group. And in fact, the UnitedHealth lawyers use that as kind of pressure on Bill Ackman to say, hey, our employees are already under a microscope. You got to take this thing down because, this is not okay. Look what it led to, and use the murder of Brian Thompson to kind of shut him down. This has been a really toxic just reality on both sides of it. What has been your kind of lived experiences around insurance, and what is like the state of it in your opinion?
So this may shock you. I don't actually, I can't fully vilify the insurance company. I think there's a much more systemic issue in the way healthcare is administered in the United States. I don't find that a lot of people agree with me, but for me, it really comes down to the tort system, to the law, the fact that people can sue doctors and any sort of medical practitioners and win multi-million-dollar, lawsuits and settlements for sometimes minute issues that happen, or even unavoidable issues at times. And what happened is that, you're asking from my personal perspective, I end up having to practice defensive medicine a lot of time.
Explain.
What that could mean in the field. If I'm going to a patient and deep down, I don't feel that this patient should be going to the hospital because the risk of going to the hospital may be bigger than the risk of this patient staying home. And what that means, let's say an elderly, weak, frail, immune-compromised patient, you take them to the hospital, they may die from an infection and so many other things that could go wrong in a hospital setting. Now, if I don't take them to the hospital, I don't have a good explanation. I can't defend it. If I do take them to the hospital, I can defend it. So I find myself having to make these really difficult decisions at times, like where I need to advocate for a patient to go to the hospital, and deep down, not knowing if this is really the best outcome. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't frivolously take someone to the hospital, but I don't really have a choice. And I need to practice medicine in defense. And, I need to document every last detail and everything that led up to the decision. And the documentation has to hold up. I was once called to defend myself in court. I wasn't even defending myself, honestly. It wasn't. It was more that someone was suing the city for falling. It was really fascinating. It just shows you how things work. I mean, I was asked to come as to testify. So this person slipped on ice, on the ice skates, in a public ice skating rink.
Oh, okay.
And
on the rink.
So that's what it came down to, right?
You signed up to stand on ice, yeah.
Right. So I see this. I come to the court, and I'm just asked, listen, you're just a witness. We're going to ask you some questions about it, and they're basically suing the city. And I see this ACR, basically, accident care report, blown up to the size of the courtroom. Bad handwriting from me, back then, forget about it. They weren't using computers or anything. And I was like, and they go through every line to basically prove it was mine. I had written it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I wrote that she slipped on the ice. And they were trying to prove that I made a mistake. And she didn't actually slip on the ice. She slipped when she was off the ice. But how were they going to do this? By destroying my credibility and the credibility of the organization. Now, I didn't really care one way or another. I was just there to testify. But the minute they started throwing my organization under the bus, I was like, no, I'm not going to help you.
You Bill Ackman the situation.
But literally, they're reading. I'm like, look, this is what it says. This is what I wrote. Then this is what happened. Like, what's the question? But anyway, the point is that, we have to document things so well because you don't know when it's going to come back and bite you years later, court cases and stuff like that. So what ends up happening is that medicine in America is way too expensive. You need to price in all the potential. For a doctor to get insurance, malpractice insurance can cost in certain medical fields hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. That means that any procedure that they're going to offer you has to be blown up in price. And mind you, to become a doctor, you have to give up 12, 15 years of your life. You have to take a Hippocratic oath, which is basically the oath of doing no evil. And this is all out the window. Like, the minute something goes wrong in the surgery, the immediate approach is, you're evil, and I'm going to sue you, and you're going to pay for it. That's not how it works in most of the rest of the world. And so, where am I going with this? I know this is a long-winded response. So what ends up happening is that the doctors will look for ways to make money so that they can actually pay. I mean, they will find billing codes. They will look for any loophole in billing, any test that they can throw in. And then the insurance company will try to fight back because, quite frankly, a lot of those are unnecessary tests, unnecessary procedures, unnecessary things, overbilling. So we've created this adversary environment where it's essentially me against you, against the insurance company, against the doctor, and everybody is looking to find a way of tricking the system. And this is the unhealthiest environment that you will ever find. So the base of the idea that insurance companies will deny claims is not always because they're just looking to screw people. Maybe it has evolved. We were talking before about this idea of like how fraud and abuse evolves. But a lot of it is just because they need to make sure that they're not getting billed hundreds of thousands of dollars for unnecessary and fake procedures and billing codes. You're well aware of how that works. So
Yep. And the OIG is going after, one of the biggest problems, and specifically with a lot of payers, I think a lot of MA plans are in trouble for this, is for overcoding, and that's a whole kind of other side of the overbilling conversation. But how did we get here? I always contrast back to like just the shtetl. We're actually doing a whole fireside chat on this at the upcoming HIMSS conference in Vegas.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, shameless plug. It's going to be, once we're plugging, it's going to be me and David Banks, group CEO of Advent Health, like a $25 billion health system. He's also on our advisory board at CareCo. There's about 30,000 people there at the conference. One of only 9 fireside chats. Sorry. The CEO of Abridge got a 4-person chat, and we got a fireside chat with 2 people. Sorry. I don't know what's, anyway. So, back in the shtetl, there was like this guy at the edge of town, and he knew your family, came in, took care of you, put some hot, some leeches on you and sucked the blood out, and then put some glasses and lit them on fire, and they, created welts. I don't know what they did back in the day, but there's actually, by the way, there's a great YouTube creator that I used to see my feed, haven't seen him in a while, kind of miss him. It does like all those kind of things, like doctors old what AI deleted him, like doctors in the old day. Oh my gosh, you have a migraine, we have to cut your arm off. It was like all those kind of things. But how did we go from that, but just from a system perspective, to this extremely toxic environment? You grew up in Switzerland. Let's contrast it to the healthcare system in Switzerland. Yeah. How does it work there?
Well, first of all, you really can't sue your doctor.
In Switzerland?
You could, but
you're not going to win?
Even if you will win for a malpractice suit, we're talking about thousands of dollars, not millions of dollars. So it's a negligible cost. The cost of medicine, it's a well-known fact that medication that is produced in the United States is cheaper in other countries. And everybody's like, how could this be? How can they sell it cheaper? The fact is they just don't need to price in so many other factors into their medication. So you're bringing up the shtetl, the little village doctor. I grew up like that. I grew up with a doctor coming to my house with a house call with his little black attaché bag. Absolutely.
Came to the house.
Absolutely.
Knocked on your knees.
100%.
Wow.
And
it was like an annual, or whenever you got sick, you were able to call him? Like what?
Anytime you got sick,
really?
Yeah. 100%.
And your parents were paying him cash, or there was insurance?
No, regular insurance.
Really?
100% part of, he would finish his day in the practice at like 5, and then he would do house calls. That's part of the... But even now,
such a romantic concept. Being in healthcare, that sounds so like,
It does. I mean, you're talking about the human element in it. My father had to go through a medical procedure, a cardiac related procedure at some point. And this particular procedure in the United States, when you do it, you get like 3 days. And then you're back home. In Switzerland, he got a 10 or 14 day hospital stay in a luxurious hospital, beautiful hospital setting. And then he got a 5-week rehab stay in like a castle setting in the mountains of Switzerland. Because realistically speaking,
that's cheaper.
That has a better health outcome.
Yeah.
It's cheaper for an insurance company technically to do that, but we're not designed for that. How did we get here? As I said, things. Even the idea that you could sue your doctor, I guess, didn't necessarily start as a negative. It may have started as a positive, but it has evolved into, we have to be very careful how things evolve. I've had this dream, and I don't even know if it's realistically possible, but almost like to offer a complete alternative healthcare system in the United States. The only thing is you're not allowed to sue. You trust the system, and everything is done for the best outcome and just bring down costs.
Okay. So I haven't preached this in a while. I used to preach this on the Healthcare Trailblazers podcast all the time. But here's my alternative healthcare system. Okay. I wouldn't say no sue, cap suing. Yeah. So it's capped to, let's say, 10 grand. Some whatever. Even if it's 50 grand.
Even if it's 100 grand, by the way.
$50,000 capped suing. Patients sign off of HIPAA, because I believe HIPAA's a scam. If you want more
of
that,
you speak about that.
Go back to the previous episode. And an AI first system. So basically, the AI first system will reduce. Because here's my perspective. The 3 giant increases in cost is the administrative burden of healthcare, which is directly created by HIPAA regulation, in my opinion, and then the litigious nature of healthcare. So cap suing, sign off HIPAA, and an AI first system.
Yeah.
And you're freaking golden.
Yeah. The problem is that, when you go to an amusement park, for example, you go on a roller coaster, there's always that big sign that you're like, we take no responsibility. It's all you're doing this at your own risk.
Right.
In reality, if a person gets injured on a roller coaster, they're suing the park, right? And they will look for every loophole to say why this does not go into the category of, and we've just become a society like that. I live in Brooklyn. I don't know how it is in Pennsylvania, but I am fully responsible for the sidewalk in front of my house, but I get none of the benefits. Meaning, there's a tree planted in front of my house that was planted by the city in the 70s. The tree has destroyed every house on the block, including mine.
How?
The roots are monstrous. They grow. They destroy your sewer system. They lift your house. The sidewalk is out of shape. So now you're fully responsible to fix your sidewalks, to fix your sewer system, to fix every part of it.
But don't touch that tree.
If there's a windy day and a bunch of trash blows in front of your house and a sanitation car comes by, you get blamed for that. But it's not your sidewalk. No. You can't put anything there. That's public. You have all the responsibility. So talking about suing, if someone trips in front of your house because you did not have eyes in the back of your head, or you dared to take a vacation for a week and something was lying in front of your house, or maybe there was a little bit of icing, an ice patch, you get sued. And you got to, your homeowner's insurance has to be priced that you will be sued. Every insurance policy in the United States is priced according to, being sued. But we're talking about CareCo over here, right? And it's interesting. Again, I mean, I've said a lot of negative things about the way things are over here, but us being this, I think a lot of the way America works also makes us very entrepreneurial, and I think that some of the greatest, first of all, think about all the great companies in the tech industry and like the amount of companies that matter in the world. How many of them are in the United States? How many were founded in the United States?
Literally all of them.
not all of them, but the very vast majority, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's beauty to that.
So that's the last piece of healthcare that is factored in, that I think is positive, that is different. Innovation is factored into the cost, meaning R&D is factored into the cost.
I don't believe that.
You don't think so?
Well, it's always factored in. It's factored in everywhere.
Not in Europe, because everywhere in Europe they're just taking technology created in the United States.
That's probably the American version that they teach you in school. But
okay,
actually,
tell me more.
The single biggest drug innovative country in the world is Switzerland, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
Some of the chemical and the pharmaceutical giants are all Swiss companies. Novartis, Ciba, and literally hundreds and hundreds of the most famous medications in the world are coming from Switzerland. Switzerland is a major hub for innovation. Even American companies use countries like Switzerland for innovation. My father worked for IBM for 35 years before he retired, and he worked in the research laboratory in Switzerland for an American company because they actually create some of the best research. And Google and all the big companies, Microsoft, they have huge campuses all over. So it's not all that it's cracked up to be, but I definitely think that the regulatory environment, the way I say it, if you want to start a company in America, you just need a dime and a dream. Or what is it, a penny and a dream?
Now after inflation, it's a dime and a dream.
Yeah. You can literally, you can incorporate your company, you have an LLC, you can have bank account, everything within like a day. Try that in Europe. We're talking about a year, $50,000 if you're lucky. So, it creates a little bit of a barrier of entry, which I guess weeds out some. But in terms of pure innovation, America is unmatched.
So come back to it. That's another piece that Vice. I think JD Vance has started talking about this. Someone made a big to do in politics about this. How the rest of the world, and I actually experienced this myself. So there was a couple times when I went down to DC, literally just to talk to people at the Lincoln Memorial, at the Washington Memorial, these places where like a bunch of tourists come, and I just stood there and I talked to people and I said, hey, where are you from? I'm from France. I'm from Switzerland. I'm from here. I'm from there. And okay, how's the healthcare system there? Oh, it's we get free healthcare. Yeah, but your taxes are like 50%. Yeah, I know, but it's worth it. Whatever. All these interesting conversations. And I spoke to this couple from the Netherlands, and it was a fascinating discussion because the couple was saying how in the Netherlands it's fully government run, fully socialist essentially healthcare system, and they were pretty happy with it, if I recall correctly. They were very happy with it, if I recall correctly. And then I said, okay, but put yourself in the shoes of a doctor. What does the top surgeon, the top specialist make in the Netherlands? And he said, I don't know, about 250,000 euro or whatever it was. And I said, doesn't that bother you that they can't, because it's all decided by the government. There's no options to go anywhere else. So I said, doesn't that bother you that someone's capped at what they can make? And they said, and his answer was mind blowing to me. He looked at me and he was like, what are you talking about? 250,000 euros of great living. And it hit me there's this huge societal difference between the US and everywhere else, where in the US, it's what are you talking about? If I can make $17 billion a year, that's what I deserve to make because I could make it.
Yeah.
And over there, they're much more, I don't know if the trendy term is demure, or I don't know what the term is, but they're much more hey, listen, we live a simple life, $250,000, whoa, I could have a nice house, I could drive a nice car.
Yeah.
But then I went home and I was thinking about that. I was like, whoa, interesting. And then it hit me. I was like, wait a second. Where does all the innovation come from? And I went on Google, and the vast majority of it comes from the US. And it hit me. I was like, so all the innovation is coming from the US. Technology doesn't have borders. Technology moves around. So they're basically leveraging all of our tech. We're the ones paying for the R&D. They get all the results. They're able to sit there on the other side of the board again, look at these American pigs making all this money and doing it this way. When they get all of the when they get all of the advantages from our innovation, and they sit there paying their people and feeling good about themselves on their high horse, when we're the ones doing all the work.
I don't even know if I want to engage in this. But, I will say that I vehemently disagree with most of what you just said. I think America profits beautifully off whatever innovation we share with the world. Everybody from Apple with their iPhones to, Google and all the other companies that are doing, that they're all multi-trillion-dollar corporations and making hundreds of billions of dollars of profit. So it's not all like we're not giving the world a gift and they're taking it for free. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of the healthy innovation comes from Europe. Because in America there's this attitude a little bit like, hey, if I'm going to try to build this, and if I succeed, it's going to be $1 billion company, and if not, I'm just going to close it down. I'll try something else tomorrow. And there's what ends up happening is that you have a lot of unfinished products, a lot of unfinished companies. Imagine you create a software. Imagine CareCo created an unfinished product, and it's like, no, it's really going to get better. And then at some point, either they decide to pivot or to close down, and now you have thousands and thousands of users relying on it, and with a broken piece of software, or that is way more common in places like the United States than in European countries. So actually, It's interesting because their mentality is very different. This is not about America, but another major innovative country is Israel, right? So IBM had strategic places where they had their research laboratories around the world. Not many. I believe they had about 5 research laboratories. So one of them was in Haifa in Israel, and one of them was in Zurich in Switzerland. And my father used to tell me that they would collaborate, like they would innovate in Haifa and they would finish the product in Switzerland because they were
the Israelis got bored.
Yeah, there was like this.
Listen, I do this for 5 days. I cannot do this no more. Take it to Switzerland.
There was like this super ADHD mentality, and they would come up with these great new products and ideas, and then they would just like get bored of them or leave them unfinished. And so there's almost like a finishing school. But talking about that $250,000 dream in Europe, I think that's beautiful. Why is it so important for every human being to chase this?
I will tell you why. Because innovation comes from greed.
Okay.
So without greed, you don't have innovation.
There's always greedy people everywhere. There are greedy people, but I'll give you an example. A stupid, New York City restaurants are some of the most expensive restaurants in the world. And, I eat kosher, so...
No, they're the same. They're the most expensive.
No, but I'm saying specifically in the kosher world, I don't know, this may shock some people, but it's not unusual to go out to dinner, just 2 people and ending up with a $500 bill.
Yeah, that's true.
And you go to Paris, which is a super expensive city. It's also a metropolitan city. Go into a kosher restaurant in Paris and you have a meal for 2 people. I'd be shocked if your bill, including a bottle of wine, is more than 150.
Where were we in Brazil? Manaus.
Yeah.
Manaus. You went a day with
I was in Panama. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, you went to Panama, and you guys went to I remember you guys raving how you went to some restaurant and you got just this insane. Every steak and every piece of meat and every bottle of wine, and it was
yeah.
That's obviously not Paris, but still. But it was a kosher restaurant, and it was a very high-end restaurant.
So I think, and also, I can tell you a lot of other things about that as well. In Paris, 1 seating a night. They're not trying to get anybody out of the restaurant. People eat dinner relatively late, but they sell every table only once per night.
Interesting.
And there's just this attitude that a restaurant is a place for families or people to get together and to spend time. And if you want to sit there for 3 hours, you sit there for 3 hours. And if the restaurant owner makes $250,000 a year, he's very happy. And then in New York, it's I'm going to open a restaurant. I'm going to make $1 million doing it. I was but restaurants don't make $1 million. The average restaurant just doesn't. So, I'm going to figure out a way of making $1 million. And I think in a lot of ways that we've driven up costs of everything because everybody has that greed factor built into them.
Cost or want? Those are 2 different things.
Cost.
You think it's the cost?
As a consumer, look at even places like McDonald's, which were known for the 99-cent meal, which is created through innovation. I don't know a lot about the details of McDonald's specifically, but as far as I understand that in the major cities, McDonald's today, your chance of walking out with paying less than $15, $20 is almost zero.
Yeah, but
and what happened, what the interesting thing for me is not so much that things went up in price, but they exploded in price. They went 99 cents, $1.19, whatever, and then $4.99. Like, and
I don't think it's cost though, because if you go based on cost, there's literally no reason for anybody, even Jewish Orthodox people who have insane expenses, tuition and all this kind of stuff. I mean, you have a lot of very well-off friends. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's any reason from a cost perspective to want to make more than about $750,000 a year, ever. You're going on vacation multiple times a year. You're paying full tuition. You're giving charity. You have a nice house. You're maybe even flying private once in a while.
With $750 a year?
No. Once in a while. I mean, I'm not talking about, a couple times a year when it's important. I'm not talking about every flight you're taking private, but when it's $20,000-$30,000 a leg.
I mean, I don't think cost of living is first of all, it's super regional. You're living a couple hours away from me by car, and the cost of living is very different around here than, But I'm talking more about culturally and how things lead. Take CareCo, right? CareCo ultimately makes the service better, makes it cheaper to provide the service. Your cost of providing an excellent service goes way down, right?
Because you can accomplish more. Yep.
So, but it could very easily, if not kept in check, it can result in like, hey, you're now dependent on me, and I'm going to charge you whatever I want because you need me. And you have to remain cognizant, like specifically in an industry like this where your ultimate goal is care. And it's one of the earliest conversations we ever had, like this mission statement in life. Like we're in the care business, and we only are the first and foremost important thing is to provide that care. And if we have to always remain true to that. Even it's the same mentality that can create a lot of good things can also lead to a lot of challenges.
So speaking of CareCo, I'm curious for I don't think I ever had this conversation with you, but because it was kind of a natural progression between, from Proviva leading into CareCo, and we've had a relationship spanning at this point 6 years or so. August or July of 2019. That's when I
had 6 years.
Yeah, just about
5-6 years. Yeah.
You're an investor. You've successfully. I mean, you have a fascinating origin story. Once again, go get the AMI if you want to read about it. But you started as a teacher, moved into business, had some failures, successes, and you've built some tremendous companies. You've done some really cool things. You built a company doing hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. Employees, real estate. I mean, I'm not going to go into all the different things. You have like 100 fingers in different things. But CareCo, as putting that lens on as an investor, what's your take on CareCo? Why do you think it's what's interesting about CareCo to you?
It's I mean, to be quite frank, it's the only thing that I'm involved in that is truly on the forefront of changing the world through the latest available technologies, leveraging everything that's out there to make the world a better place. So in many ways, that is my mission statement in life. I try to incorporate that into everything. But AI is so fast moving, and it throws so many amazing curveballs all the time. And anybody that's going to truly tell you, I love it when people, like, again, I'm going back to Elon Musk, but others as well in this space. He says there's an 80% chance that AI is going to be great for humanity. There's a 20% chance. Yeah, but most of the big leaders say there's a 20% chance that it's going to go horribly wrong. And that idea, horribly wrong in this case, I don't think that people can even grasp what that means. And leveraging it and trying to stay relevant in something that is moving as quick as AI, and first time ever where we're seeing this exponential explosion of growth and knowledge and everything. I mean, people that are leveraging AI in their daily interactions in their businesses, they're already 10xing themselves right now. They having I was driving here right now from New York, so I had a couple of conversations in the car. One of them, we had to write a letter, an important letter, and Mitch, my partner, he wrote up the points and then he put it through Grok and like it generated, and it's just like creating this perfect, really well written letter. I remember the early ChatGPT letter generation days, and they were good, but once you wrote like 3 or 4 letters with ChatGPT, you realized that you could just tell that it was written by ChatGPT. They all had like this signature. And I think what struck me about this particular letter is that it felt really good. It felt like a human took time out. And so AI is different. AI, if you use it properly, this is going to change everything. It's going to change. So, and probably the most important thing is to help humanity, and that's what you're doing. So CareCo is very different for me. It's probably the most important thing that I'm involved in.
I appreciate that. It's interesting because while I listen to you, it kind of takes me back to 2022 when we started developing these concepts that eventually turned into CareCo. And the tenor and the tone of people in the space has definitely changed. There was a lot more doomsayers and a lot more people talking about how you don't understand what this AI is. It's going to take over the world. It's going to turn the whole world into paper clips. It's going to do all this kind of, all these kind of crazy things. That's definitely slowed down a tremendous amount as AI has actually started to develop over the last 2 years. And you actually, I know, have had, and I think continue to have a pretty interesting spectrum of opinions on the matter. Because on the one hand, you're with me every step of the way on CareCo. You believe in taking action on the immediate steps, but you also have some pretty doomsday kind of future telling about where CareCo you thinking not CareCo where AI can go. Do you think, has that calmed down for you internally? First of all, do you agree with me that the tone has shifted dramatically and become a lot more moderate over the last while? And has that affected you individually with your opinions?
Excellent question. I agree with you, first of all. It definitely is not on the forefront of what people are talking about anymore. I myself, as long as I don't go into a deep thinking mode, I'm generally okay, living in the present and in the status quo of it. I still have very deep-seated fears, and it's interesting. My fears may have shifted a little bit. I still have the original fears, and I think the original fears are the ones that are very hard to quantify, and they have to be hard to quantify. Those fears are mainly based on the idea that until now, everything in the world was linear. Every progress was linear. Everything, programming language was if, then, if not, then not. That's how programming worked. And in AI, we created essentially a brain, and every interaction with that brain makes the brain smarter. So you have essentially a million or millions of people that are interacting with this brain, and they're all programming it. And growth is exponential. Growth is no longer linear. And we don't know where this is going to go to. That fear, that original fear, is not the known. I was never really afraid of robots going and starting to kill human beings by developing weapons or anything like that. I'm afraid of the unknown. I'm afraid we're going to a place where we've never been. And we're right now at the cusp where we're loving it. We're loving this version of 10xing our human capability. but we're not experiencing when they don't need us anymore. And where that's going to go, that fear is still there, that deep-seated fear. But the bigger fear, and that is a relatively new fear. I mean, new, and within the last year, is the fear of humans need to feel needed. And when humans are replaced, if there's something that can do everything better than a human, then the humans will lose their will to live. And that is my big fear. It's like, if I'm not needed for anything, and we're seeing already like little parts of that. Imagine I'm this copywriter and everything that I've worked my entire life for is being replaced by, a little generative AI. If and then movie producers and directors and all these people that have made it their life's work to be the best at their craft, and then just not needed anymore. Human beings don't know how to handle not being needed. That's my fear. That's my biggest fear today.
So we haven't seen that yet.
No.
What we've seen is people who the work that they used to do is now done by AI, but they've used it to 10x themselves.
That's right. That's where we're at right now.
Right, but what does that say about our innate ability to adapt to the tools and technologies that are at our? I mean, you used to have people that all they did was, I don't know, they used to be travel agents not that long ago, and now they're not travel agents, called Amex Travel. You go on, you book a flight, and done. Those people didn't go and commit suicide. They just they 10x themselves. I mean,
I will continue to say this. First of all, so far so good, no doubt. But we've never, until now, every innovation in humanity was something that helped humans be better. Everything from the Industrial Revolution. This is the first time where we're replacing humans, and we don't know yet what that's going to look like. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. We're not at a point where we just don't matter anymore. And I don't know. As I said, it's a fear. It's not a knowledge. I don't know. I don't know that this is going to be an issue.
I think there's a difference between we don't matter anymore and the thing that we do does not matter anymore. And I think that it's worthwhile to separate those two things.
Yeah, no, that's a valid point. And I hope that we will be able to differentiate it.
I think we do. I think that this has happened multiple times throughout history, where the thing that we did was taken over by technology, but we as humans are not. And I think that we have to get to a deeper definition of who we are as people.
Yeah. So if it works out the way you're saying, I think that a lot of human beings lack the ability to separate what they do in life and who they are in life, and a lot of other factors. They all mesh together. When people lose their job, they feel like their whole life came crashing down. That's a lot of times it's temporary, and people find new jobs and they find new connections. But I don't know. I don't know that we already have the true knowledge of what this is going to look like. Hey, listen, I don't want to be a doomsday sayer. You asked me what my fears are. My fears.
Yeah, I want to explore it.
My fears are there. It's not something that we can actually rationally argue about, because
we don't know what we're talking about.
I'm not professing to know.
Right.
My fear, it's a deep fear. And lately I've been hearing the people that do speak about the big fear, they do mention that as well. I believe, I want to say I came up with this fear on my own, but maybe I heard it somewhere else. I'm not sure. I know it's a deep-seated human need to feel needed.
I think that it's so deep-seated that we will find a way to be needed no matter what happens in technology.
And I hope you're right.
And it's a very good example that you bring up about people that lose their jobs, that have a huge
existential crisis.
Yes. And you've seen that. I've seen that with people. But I think that is more wrapped up in kind of the status and stature that a picture about themselves that they built up than necessarily the tools that they're disposed. I think there's something deeper there, something worth exploring.
Look, in Judaism, it's interesting.
I was going to say, you do a lot of Hasidic philosophy. Feel free to tap into it.
It's funny because we actually value things that others don't. There's there's people in the Orthodox Jewish world that all they do is study all day, and they're the most respected people. And technically, you can say they produce nothing. They're just sitting there and learning and delving into this farm, into these books, and they are some of the most revered people in the world. So it's interesting. There's this book by Yuval Noah Harari about Homo Deus. I believe it's in the second book where he questions what the future is going to look like in a world of AI when humans are not going. So he uses, I think, a very interesting term over there that humans may enter like the grazing period. Cows used to matter. Now they don't matter anymore. So they're in the grazing period of their existence, and humans are going to have to enter some sort of state. And then I think he thinks like, what could this look like? And he says maybe a version of this is when we look at these ultra-Orthodox Jewish people sitting and learning and studying all day and really, getting paid for it even, people supporting that. And he's like, maybe this is a little bit of a harbinger of what the future is going to look like.
That's hilarious because he's like famously one of the most notable atheists and in the Israeli community, which is hilarious. This is whatever. It's interesting because I had a podcast this week on the Healthcare Trailblazers podcast with the chief medical officer of a company called Vita Health, and they are a value-based care organization that helps patients with obesity, and historically they've been with diet and exercise and behavior change. But since GLP-1s came out, they've really just blown up their company with GLP-1s. And I had this philosophical kind of exercise with him where the core concept is the same, which is that like if humans can get to a point where the cost of these drugs are zero, let's say, and the side effects are zero, so essentially you can literally take a pill and stay fit, would they take it? And I think it comes down to the same thing of just like,
I think you can go even deeper. If you had a pill that would make you live forever, do you take it? I have a very hard time thinking that I would. I think one of the beauties, I mean, I don't want to call it a beautiful thing, but I think that you have a limited amount of time to perfect yourself, to do your mission in the world, if you want to stay on the philosophical topic.
Yeah.
But
part of the fun is the struggle. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, just bring it back down to practicality, like on every level of life, you see this. I mean, you and I have talked about the spiritual relationship that people have with money. I mean, spiritual maybe is the wrong word, but there's a certain like esoteric relationship that people have with money that when it's not earned, it's lacking and it disappears.
Yeah.
And the money doesn't respect them, and they don't respect the money, and they just dissolve from each other. We've talked about this.
I like the terminology that you're using. Yeah. I don't know if I've heard this particular terminology.
We talked about it. And when people work hard for their money, they have a relationship with their money. They respect the money. The money respects them back. And there's a certain symbiotic relationship that they have. And when people just come into money or spot a lottery ticket or just crypto or just whatever it is, that doesn't happen, and the money actually affects them badly, and they impact the money badly, and they just both get divorced essentially.
I mean, I don't know, I wanted to delve into that right now, but there's definitely a lot of truth to that. But this goes back to the same idea. Can we really separate our inherent humanity from external factors, to how much money you have or your family or how you look or any, all those other factors, and it remains to be seen. Yeah. I think going back to the whole European thing, I think in Europe, where I grew up, and it's still like this today, there's literally the whole country shuts down for weeks in the summer. This is vacation time. This is when you go and spend time with your family, and now it's skiing vacation in Switzerland. The entire Switzerland is skiing right now. And
I can't even imagine that. I can't even get away for a wedding without feeling guilty. Yeah.
We don't have that separation in America. Again, it leads to some great innovation, but burnout and how many people have reached the pinnacle of success in America and then just started questioning everything about their existence. Like, what is this all about?
Yeah. Man. Anyway.
Yeah.
I'm getting blackberries and rose petals. That's what I'm getting.
Nice.
What do you get?
I don't know. I'm not getting anything right now.
But you get wine.
It's a good bottle.
This is, I think, the best we've had on the series so far. It's unfortunate
it's one of our last ones, and it's a special bottle. It's
fantastic. It's spectacular. It's unfortunate for our viewers because I spoke to an executive at Blue Cross Blue Shield that watches the podcast, and she said that she marks down every week the wine that we that we feature to buy. So unfortunately, this is a private label, but this is absolutely spectacular.
Yeah,
it's wonderful. So good job. It's actually better than the last Malion.
Oh no, for sure.
It's tremendous.
We got nothing left.
Yeah.
So this is
anyway,
it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
This was fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out. And
much continued success.
Yes. The CareCo.